Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, my child is trans. Now what? The new book from trans educator, advocate, and author, Ben V. Greene. That and more in episode 400. So stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hello, my name is Conchita.
And I'm Barbecue.
And my name is Hardcora. And we are the B
Girls. You're listening to
Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada and Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's gay and lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as a #1 Canadian LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So today, a spotlight on a new book that comes out May 7th. My Child is Trans. Now what? A joy-centered approach to support. The new book is from trans educator, advocate, and author Ben V. Greene. We'll find out more about this book, the author, and more. Plus in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house, and on this episode I'm featuring some classic house, some queer blues, and more. All that lies ahead as we start journey 400 through Rainbow Country. First up, the most recent evicted house guest from Big Brother Canada, Season 12.
Vivek, you have been evicted from the Big Brother Canada house. Please say your goodbyes.
I love each and every single one of you so much. Really do. Bring it in.
Love you, dude.
Sorry, B. Love you. I love you all. I understand it's just a game.
We love you, Vivek.
We love you.
We love you.
Sorry.
We love you, dude.
We love you, V. Cheers.
We'll see you soon, okay? Good job, Vivek. We'll see you soon, okay?
Love you so much.
This ain't the end.
Vivek, hi, how are you?
Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
I am good, Vivek. How are you?
I am in shock. I'm happy, confused. Feel a lot of emotions right now.
So, Vivek, that vote, unanimous, face-to-face, the executive veto, a twist. Well, generally speaking, what are your thoughts on being taken out by a twist?
if you're about to leave the show in any way, I'd rather be that way, where it is a twist and it's crazy like that. To be honest with you, it's like almost like ripping off the band-aid. I'd rather go out. If I was to go out, I'd rather go out that way, because instead of standing on the nomination block for so long after a week, then doing the campaigning, hoping to win the power veto, all that, it's exhausting. I've seen people go through it. I've been there. It's not fun. So if I was to go, it's the best way to go, I think.
So Vivek, last week you were head of household. You had all the power. Now this week, girl, you gone. Bye.
Yeah.
After your HOH, did you feel comfortable in the house after your HOH?
That's a really good question. After my HOH, I really expected Kayla, Dougie, and Spicy V to really have my back. And the fact that I would walk in on some of the conversations that would have without me, that was really concerning to me. Although I did feel okay one-on-one with a lot of the guys, I felt like they had my back. And then when Elijah won, I knew that I was going to be okay because I had a close bond with Elijah. So I decided to sit back and really process what I just been through the previous 3 weeks, being on slop, the HOH, being on the block. So I kind of took a step back for a second just to breathe. And then little did I know that I'd be going up.
So Vivek, after that twist, after the executive veto, who do you feel most betrayed by?
That's a really good question. I know even though Todd used the veto on me to be replaced, I'm not most upset by him because I expect that from him, and also Bailey. But the one that I was surprised by the most is Spicy V. That was really shocking to me. I thought I was really close to Spicy V. We had the Square Up Alliance. And the nice things that she told me about, the fact that she didn't have to use that veto and still decided to use it, especially on Todd, knowing full well that he's going to put me as replacement nominee, shows me that she really did not have my back.
Let's go back in time. Your game relationship with Dennis, was he your number one in the game?
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
Okay. So then during your HOH, you essentially blindsided your number one. Why did you think it would be a good idea to backstab someone that had your back, so to speak?
Like I said in my speech, Dennis was probably the closest person to me, and this was a really difficult decision. I love him with all my heart, but I had to think what's best for my game. Anthony and Spicy V are running this house, and I need numbers in Big Brother to actually win. I need to go far in the game even. And just me and Dennis together, we weren't going to go anywhere. We needed numbers. The way the girls, he was rubbing the girls the wrong way, even the guys he was rubbing the wrong way. I could not go farther in the game with Dennis as much as I wanted to. So when the opportunity arose, when Spicy, Kayla, and Dougie offered the alliance, I saw numbers in that. And then when they pitched out Dennis, I immediately denied it. But when they kept pitching him and saying that it's rubbing the whole house the wrong way, and if I did not win HOH, I would have been on the block next to him. And if I don't get him out now, next week I'll be on the block against him. So for my own safety and also to gain the numbers in the house, even if I knew back of my mind they might be manipulating me, I needed to make that move to show that, hey, I can be controlled and I can be trustworthy. But the biggest sacrifice was Dennis. So again, it broke my heart, but I think that was the right move.
So ultimately, getting rid of Dennis, would you say that truly was your move?
Yes. Even though I felt that there were a lot of years in coming into my HOH and telling me what to do, looking at the long-term picture, I believe that was the right move. Because we both wouldn't have made it very far. But I had to show my side. I had to make the alliance with them and show them that, hey, I am willing to work with you so I don't go on the block the week after. But obviously they didn't trust that and still put me up and then sent me home. So Spicy V and that alliance they really did ruin my game and backstab me. It's ironic because I feel like I got what I deserve. I did it to Dennis, and I got same thing. So I'm not upset by it. But it sucks that we're both out.
Is it harder to play this game than you thought it would be?
Oh wow, that's yeah, absolutely. Like going into the game, you really don't realize how stressful it is. Um, you see things on TV, it's like, wow, they're going through slop, and you forget about it. Or wow, they're on the nomination block, they forget about it. We go through it day in, day out. We wake up with the emotions, with the stress of the game, and we go to sleep with the same. It is so much harder than it looks. All you have are the people around you in that game. And what are the information you're getting? That's all you have to rely on. Way harder than it looks.
Vivek, here's my last question for you. Best part about being part of Big Brother Canada season 12.
Best part about being on the season was definitely, number one, making my dream come true of actually being on the show. But number two, getting to actually know each and every single one of those house guests. I know that they're all in there playing a game. We've all somehow lied or talked shit about each other, but at the end of the day, we all genuinely still do love each other. And I'm glad I used my HOH to really get to know everybody, their backstory, their childhood, how they were raised, where they're from, and just realize that at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Vivek, well said, well done, well played. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Big Brother Canada Season 12 airs on Global TV, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. For more information, simply visit bigbrothercanada.ca. When I return, my child is trans. Now what? When did gay pride become just pride?
I can answer that for you, and I can answer what a big turnaround was, and it's a very simple thing. Corporatism is when gay pride became pride. As soon as we got corporate sponsors, as soon as we had the approval of the corporations around us, oh my God, the beer company's going to sponsor it and they're going to give us a float, and look at the telephone company's going to do something and someone else is going to do something.
But drop the gay.
Yeah, drop the gay and include everyone. And I always thought, why should we include everyone? This is a gay pride celebration. It is for people who are in a sexual minority. We had something that was for us to make people recognize who we are and to acknowledge that we actually existed.
Award-winning playwright and author Brad Fraser reflects on some important gay history. The time frame, the 1990s. When gay pride becomes pride, with the introduction of corporate sponsorships.
Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Ben V. Greene. Hello, hi, how are you?
Hello, I am great, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you are more than welcome. You are more than welcome. I have to say, and I always do, thank you for being here, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that, especially to talk about your most recent book, My Child is Trans, Now What? A joy-centered approach to support. That's the full title. I like to start from the ground and build up from there. So talk to me about what is it that you are getting at within the pages of My Child is Trans, Now What? What can people find within these pages?
It's obviously joy is a big one. It's meant to be a very compassionate book that, I came out as a transgender young person about 10 years ago. And so it talks about my story, my experiences, things that went well, things that could have gone better. It centers a number of trans stories of folks that I interviewed. And it has a lot of, there's no judgment in there of, well, you should know this by now, but in case you don't, I guess I'll explain it to you. It really is, all right, so things are a little bit scary. That's okay. Let's talk through it together. It breaks down from the very beginning of exploring identity, trying on new names, to coming out to siblings, building a safe home environment. Then we leave the home and talk about the extended family, the community, coming out at school, receiving medical care. We talk about what's going on in the world today. I'm a trans person based in Missouri. Even if I want nothing to do with politics, politics wants a whole lot to do with me. So we talk about how that impacts our transgender loved ones, things that we can do to show up as allies for them. And throughout the book, there are these joy exercises, because a lot of books about trans people, a lot of the conversations we have begin and end at trans misery and avoiding trans misery. We talk about dysphoria and suicide statistics and mental health challenges. And it is so important to be aware of those things. And my life isn't just about avoiding misery. It's also about building joy. And so as we talk about challenges that might come up, we also talk about opportunities to be incredibly joyful as families with our community members. And that's such an important piece of the book. I like to think it's also funny. That's for you to decide, I suppose, but I was laughing writing it. So I hope there's something in there for everybody, whether you're a day one ally or an active champion looking to make sure that you know the best, most current strategies for allyship. It's really, anybody can read it. If you want to learn, I want to teach.
Is it fair to say that this book might be considered a guide, or maybe a how-to or self-help book when it comes to
absolutely? I think
the trans community?
It's a handbook. It's a handbook or a toolbox. You might not do every single thing that's in the book, but the goal is to give you many different tools that then you and your family can decide what feels right. What medicine you want to talk about, what appointments you want to consider, what you want social transition to look like. It's absolutely a guide.
Okay, a joy-centered guide to allyship. A joy-centered guide to allyship. And I want to focus on the word allyship. Do you think that allyship works multiple ways? So, for instance, the trans community being allies, and members of the trans community being allies to, cisgender individuals that want to learn about the experience, as opposed to some people from the trans community wanting not to talk about things, which personally I don't necessarily think helps educate people when they, may want to learn something. What are your thoughts on that being, allyship working both ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think allyship really is all around. When I think of something like allyship, it really is lifting up a community that is in need of it. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an ally to cisgender folks, but absolutely I am an educator. My goal is to share stories and help people, get informed. I think it looks a little bit differently, but absolutely there are similarities. And, when I was coming out, I was the trans encyclopedia immediately. I was teaching our health classes, training our guidance staff. I became an adult. And there were ways in which that was really challenging for me. I was not always the right person to answer that question, but I knew there weren't always alternatives. So I answered them as often as I could. And then when I got to college, I originally said, all right, I'm done. I'm not answering any more questions. That lasted a day because I just really liked doing it and I was good at it. But I know other people who don't want to answer questions. And what I'd say is, in an ideal world, should you need to be a teacher constantly to get the respect and support that other people might get by default? No, I don't necessarily want that to be the way things are forever. But also, we have to be realistic about the world that we're in now. And if you want to get support, that might require some additional assistance. There's been a dramatic increase in visibility of the trans community that hasn't been coupled with an increase in education. So a lot of people have no idea what's going on, and it's really hard to learn. Go on Google and imagine that you are a brand new trans ally. What would you search? And then of the results, many of which are sponsored misinformation, what would you click? Think about how hard it is for a new ally and develop your know resources. You don't always have to answer a question, but have a list of websites or books or, leaders that you trust. You can say, I actually don't have the energy for that question, or I'm not the right person to answer that. But here's a resource that I trust that you can go and learn more, rather than just saying, well, you should educate yourself. because I agree. I think it's really unhelpful. It isolates a lot of our allies who are genuinely trying to learn. So having those no resources is so amazing. And, I think the trans community, just even if I wouldn't use the word allyship to say, we as to cisgender folks, I do think we need to provide that support. And I think we provide allyship in a lot of other ways, right? So am I a transgender person who needs allyship from my friends? Yeah. Are my friends women who sometimes need allyship from someone who presents as male? Yeah. Do I also provide allyship to disabled people and people of color? Yeah. So allyship does go in so many different ways. And there are so many ways that as humans, beyond just the word allyship, we show up for each other. We take care of each other. We help each other. And I think that's so important. It's a great question.
The weird thing about that question is, in your response, your signal dropped out a couple times, and it dropped out at the beginning. And just now, when you were talking about allyship and I think maybe yourself being an ally to, say, maybe cisgender individuals, can you just repeat that? Like, what were you getting at there?
Absolutely. So I was going to say, even if allyship might not be the specific word I would use, because we use that word to specifically talk about supporting groups who are marginalized.
Okay.
I don't think my cisgender folks are marginalized, but as humans, we like to help each other. We take care of each other. We connect with each other. That absolutely is something that, people on social media love to say, you don't owe anybody anything. No, each other is all that we have. We owe the people around us everything, because we feel that we deserve to be treated well and respectfully, which also means that's what we owe to others. And so even if allyship might not be the word that I would use, I do think the concept of taking care of each other, supporting each other, absolutely resonates.
Why did you want to write this book?
It's a good question. I've been working on this book for over half a decade. I started it 6 years ago.
Maybe even all your life.
Yes, it has been a work in progress. I think in major part because so many of the books that are out there, I've talked to a lot of parents. I do a lot of professional public speaking during the day. I'll do a lot of corporate stuff. And then parents will come from those events and say, hey, that was really wonderful. My kid just came out. Can you talk to me? And then I'll get on the phone and talk to them however long they want. And frequently they tell me the books out there are just not doing it for me. And there are a couple of reasons why that I hear from these parents and that I've seen from reading these books myself. Many of them are not written by transgender people. Most of them are written by cisgender people and make a lot of assumptions that aren't necessarily the most accurate about what our community needs. And they put the parent at the center. They talk all about the parent's grief and the pain of the process. Some other books alternatively bring in a lot of judgment of, well, you should know this by now, or kind of like fighting with the parents, almost expecting them to be resisting. And a lot of parents I know say, listen, I just want a book that focuses on supporting the trans kid. This isn't about me. It's about my kid. So my book is joy-centered. It's also trans-centered. It centers my story as someone who came out as a trans young person. And it talks a lot about, how we can not make a young person's transition about ourselves. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to experience emotions, but it does mean you're not the primary focus of this transition. So I wanted to write this book because I felt like there just wasn't there like it. I wanted to provide a compassionate guide for parents who were terrified and supportive, because you can be both those things at the same time, that didn't judge them, that didn't say, you can't ask this question, and that said, it's not just about avoiding misery, it's about seeking joy. I really wanted to add that into the world. I felt like it was missing.
The transgender community, a lot of stuff is in the media, and especially when it comes to American media. I'm in Canada. I'm in Toronto. You're in Missouri. So in 2024, do you think that there are more trans individuals today, or do you think that it's the atmosphere is more favorable for people to be able to feel comfortable to come out and express themselves? How do you see that?
I think you've got it spot on. Technically, statistically, more people than ever before are coming out as LGBTQ plus and specifically as transgender, but that's not because that they wouldn't have come out otherwise necessarily. It's because more people than ever before have access to the language to describe their identities. More people than ever before have safety to come out. They know that, perhaps my parents will be supportive, or there are other trans kids at my school. They have the resources, the knowledge, the safety to come out. But that doesn't mean that there weren't trans people before. There have been trans people throughout history, and a very intentional effort to hide those stories. So, one of my favorite stories is something like Little Women, written by Louisa May Alcott. Everybody's heard of that book. Most people have read it in English class. And most English teachers decide, even though we talk about Jo March and her way of kind of bucking off gender norms, we choose not to. Louisa May Alcott went by Lou Alcott and he, him pronouns with all the people in his personal life, and often wrote letters describing the gender dysphoria that he experienced. The word trans may not have existed throughout history, but trans people, trans stories, things that we now would have described as trans, has existed forever in so much global mythology. So it is convenient to think of this as a new issue, but the reality is we have always been here. We are not going anywhere. This is not a trend or a fad. What we're seeing with the increased number of people coming out is healing.
So you don't necessarily think that there are more trans individuals coming up more today because of something in the water or like chemtrails or some sort of like crazy notion or theories or, that sort of thing. It's just, society is evolving and people are feeling more comfortable being who they are.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything like people think that by teaching someone transgender, you start a journey of them deciding to come out. For most people, learning the word transgender is the final key that unlocks the door to a closet that is like Looney Tunes style full, just totally, coming out in waves. Most people have these feelings and just lack the language to describe it. It is not the other way around that getting the language makes people come out. So I absolutely agree. It's not something in the water, not the chemtrails or 5G or TikTok. It is simply having access to understanding and safety that is making more people come out. But we would have had the same number of people experiencing being trans, even if they didn't have the ability to express it or to fully live their truth.
So the title, My Child is Trans, Now What? A joy-centered approach to support. That's a full title. Is there a story behind this particular title?
Yeah, the story of this title is that is a sentence that people say to me all the time. It is an email subject line that I get. People say those specific words to me. And I have to imagine if they're saying them to me, they're saying them to each other. They're typing it into Google. They're asking their local friends. And I was like, wow, isn't it so hilarious that someone would say, God, my kid is trans. Now what? And someone would be like, well, funny you should say that. Here you go. So it felt like a natural response to a question that so many people were asking. And I love that it's my child is trans. Now what? It's not, is my child trans? It's not, okay, here's how to handle a transition. It's, okay, I've accepted that my child is trans. What do I do? How do I move forward from here?
That's a really big distinction.
Yeah. And then it was so important to me to include the word joy in the subtitle because that is so just fundamental to everything that I do as, an advocate and as an educator, is saying, this isn't going to be your run of the mill, like, oh, woe is you, your kid is trans, you're grieving their loss. It was really, hey, there are things that are going to change and your child is still the same person. They're just more comfortable. Their smile is bigger. They're wearing different clothes, but that's still your kid. So let's talk about how to celebrate while honoring the challenging emotions that are likely to come up because people are human. They're allowed to have feelings. So it was fun to pick the title. It felt very natural.
And on that note, we'll return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm David Pevsner. I'm a writer and an actor. My memoir, Damn Shame, a memoir of desire, defiance, and show tunes, is out now. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hitmakers is a full-service, award-winning record label and social enterprise based in Iqaluit, Nunavut. We specialize in the creating and marketing of world-class Inuit and Indigenous music, including pop, hip-hop, rock, folk, and traditional Inuit music. Hitmakers has studios in Iqaluit, Ottawa, and Toronto. The label currently works with more than 20 Inuit and Indigenous artists, and we represent and promote many more. The company was founded in 2016, and our mission is to create viable careers in the arts for Inuit and Indigenous artists through music, media, and education. Our secondary mission is to empower artists to share and strengthen their stories and culture. To learn more, please connect with us on social media or at hitmakers.com. That's hitmakers with a Z. Thanks for listening. Koyanami.
Hi, I'm Jamie B. of TG CD Style Toronto, and I'm a professional feminization makeup artist and stylist providing male-to-female transformations and mentoring to those who identify as a cross-dresser or a trans woman. I first heard of Rainbow Country and Mark Tara in trying to find a radio station that specifically caters to the LGBT community, and I'm so grateful I found this station. It's crucial having a platform like Rainbow Country that welcomes all aspects of the queer community, including allies like myself and what I do. It casts a spotlight on specific needs and interests of human beings, ensuring that people from all walks of life are being validated. It's a real privilege to be able to work with cross-dressers and trans women by helping them align themselves with their feminine energy through the glorious feminization process. So, I want to thank Rainbow Country and Mark Tara for providing this platform for all of us.
Hi, I'm Paul Poirier, Canadian champion in ice dance and 3-time Olympian, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So Ben V. Greene, you are transgender. I am gay. I've always known that I was gay ever since I was little, like maybe like 5, 6, 7, having crushes on other male friends, that sort of thing. For yourself, when did you start recognizing that you felt that there was something different?
Yeah.
When did that start crystallizing for you?
Yeah, and those are two different answers because I knew pretty much the whole time that something was different, but not in any specific way. I didn't identify as I wasn't particularly masculine. I was just weird. I was a strange kid, I would get invited to a princess dress-up party, and it wasn't that I wanted to be Prince Charming. It was that I wanted to be Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, who was a blue alien with 6 arms. So I was very weird kid. And then when puberty started, everybody always said, all the adults joked and all my friends were like, yeah, and puberty's awful. Everybody hates puberty. And so I was like, okay, so everybody is so miserable. They hate what's happening to their body. This is normal because that's what all the adults are telling me. So I kind of thought it was normal to hate puberty in a way that was absolutely not normal. And I've now learned was definitely gender dysphoria. But at the time I was just like, yeah, I hate the changes that my body's going through. And then I came out as bisexual first and was added to a Facebook group, underground network of LGBTQ youth across the whole state of Connecticut, where I'm from, which is a small state made up of tiny towns. And so we found each other online. And this was an amazing resource. We supported each other. It was a lot of work went into keeping it very safe, to helping us get resources. And somebody posted it and said, hey, I'm transgender. Here's what that means. About a year after I'd come out as bisexual and joined the group. And it was like an explosion to me. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know you could do that. That right there, that feels like me. And so the second that I learned the word, I was like, I did a ton of research, and I realized pretty quickly it was a matter of weeks, maybe 2 months of between learning that word and coming out to myself. And still a lot of time passed between when I came out to myself and when I determined it would be safe enough to come out to my family, my friends, people at school. But pretty quickly, I was like, yeah, I know I don't feel right in my body, but I thought that was normal. And then I learned what the word for that was. And that pretty quickly kind of snapped into place.
Gender dysphoria. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an analogy I love to use, which is sitting in chairs. So, because we've all sat in chairs before, so it's a very relatable analogy. When you sit down in a chair, we're going to say that, your chair represents your biological sex, which is just the body that you have. When you sit down, you're aware of that chair. You feel it. But if it's comfortable, you kind of stop feeling your chair. You aren't always thinking about how a chair feels. Now you probably are because I pointed it out. But before I pointed it out, you probably weren't aware of that feeling at all, just like you might not typically feel the clothes on your body or hair on your head if it's comfortable. But when you're uncomfortable, it is so present and can be really distracting and painful if it feels, if you go on sitting in that chair for a long time. So that's gender dysphoria, that feeling of discomfort or distress when your gender identity and your expression and your biological sex are not aligned. At its core, it just means not being seen as you are, whether that's by others or by yourself. So some people might have social dysphoria. That's about, everybody uses the wrong pronouns for me. I know the people around me don't see me as I am. That's social dysphoria. Or they might have physical dysphoria. So for me, I had a lot of dysphoria about my chest. And when I had top surgery to make my chest appear more masculine, I stopped experiencing gender dysphoria. I felt very neutral in my body. I started hormone therapy a few years later, not because I was miserable without it, but because I'm even more joyful with it. I was seeking what's called gender euphoria, which is this feeling of joy or comfort when your expression aligns with your identity, when you know that you are seen as you are, again, by yourself or by others. And gender euphoria isn't just a trans thing also. If you get a really good haircut or you find a shirt that fits you just right, or you listen to Man, I Feel Like a Woman by Shania Twain, that is gender euphoria. And that's a feeling that we want everybody to be able to have access to.
Transgender, gender non-binary. These are two separate things.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and how you see these differences?
Absolutely. So different people conceptualize them in different ways. And I'm actually going to keep leaning on that chair analogy because I find that to be a helpful way to break down some of these topics. Transgender just means that my stool was uncomfortable, so I moved to an armchair. And typically everybody's in a stool or an armchair. So transgender means that I moved to the other, what's called a binary option, because there are only two. I moved to that armchair and I feel more comfortable now. Non-binary is an umbrella term that encapsulates a wide variety of identities that someone might have. So maybe it's someone who says, I want a chair that's a little softer than a stool, but a little taller than an armchair. Maybe someone is gender fluid. They identify as one type of chair one day and a different type of chair a different day. Maybe someone says, I just don't get it. No matter what chair I sit in, I'm uncomfortable. I'd rather just stand up. They can identify as what's called agender. So again, they're all under that umbrella term non-binary, which just means not one of the two binary identities, being male or female. So what's interesting is I have a lot of people come to me after I try to explain trans and non-binary identities. They say, how am I supposed to keep track? It feels like there are so many. And there's actually a skill that we already have in our own lives that I want us to use when we're talking about different LGBTQ identities that might be unfamiliar to us. I'm sure many of our listeners have people in their family or their friends or their roommates who have jobs they don't understand. I know I do. My wife is a fourth-year medical student. She's studying to be an OBGYN. She'll go and do a surgery. And when she gets home, I say, hey, how was your day? And then she starts a sentence that I don't understand at all. I don't recognize any of the words that she's using, but I love her. And so I ask her about it. I ask questions. I listen with respect and enthusiasm. Maybe we watch an episode of Grey's Anatomy together where they do that procedure. All of a sudden, I start to learn enough words to have a conversation with her about it. Our goal will never be for me to be able to do a surgery. Everyone will die, including me, if I try to do a surgery. Our goal is just for me to bring that enthusiasm and respect because I love her, rather than understanding perfectly. So we want to work on our understanding. We want to be curious and find things that represent different identities. If someone comes out as an unfamiliar identity, maybe find a book or a TV show that has a character with that identity so you can learn a little bit more about it. But you don't need to be an expert to show up with love and respect and kindness for that person's identity. So that's the energy that I want us to bring to identities that might be a little unfamiliar. You don't have to keep track of all of them. You just have to be prepared to meet people with new identities with respect.
Okay, So, loss and gain, more so to do with maybe social stature, social standing, that sort of thing. I've spoken to some trans individuals, more so trans women who were born male, and they transitioned later in life. And so therefore, when they were, an adult male or, in late teens, that sort of thing, they were male. And so they had a certain stature in the community, and they felt a certain kind of way. And then they transitioned and now become a transgender woman. And some of them have said to me that they felt a loss of, because now they're seen as a woman. They're almost less than. They lose that stature. For yourself, being now you are a man, you were born a girl. Yeah. Do you feel like maybe that you have gained a stature in society's eyes, especially being, a white male? Do you feel that?
Absolutely. And it is so fascinating to exist simultaneously on, not that it is a numerical game, but to exist roughly on both ends of the privilege spectrum. On one end, I'm transgender, and at least in the US, that is a very, very oppressed identity right now. There are 480 anti-trans bills across the US right now. And when people don't know that I'm transgender, I'm a white man with a wife and a reasonably well-paying job. I am at the high end of privilege, and it's so interesting to exist in both spaces. And, in particular, in being perceived as male outside of the workplace, safety is a big way that's shown up for me. Figure out how to process, because I was socialized as female, which being socialized is being taught how to exist in a society. And the biggest thing my parents taught me, and anybody who was, raised female knows, your parents teach you a lot about how to be safe from men. So it was a lot of, okay, you take public transportation at night, find a woman and sit next to her because you are safer together. That was a big thing. If you're lost, find a woman with kids. It was all about that solidarity of keeping me safe from men and from strangers, but also like that it is a thing that women are in many ways at risk from men, especially young girls. That was something I needed to watch out for. And that was driven into me, especially the transportation thing was something that like, for some reason, just locked into my brain. Find a woman on the train, sit next to her, especially if it's late at night. And for a while, that was what I did. And then I started testosterone. My shoulders got broader, my voice got deeper, I grew a beard. All of a sudden, I get on a train at, midnight, 1 a.m., and my brain says, okay, find a woman and sit next to her. But I have to acknowledge that I'm coming onto that train now, not as a fellow woman, but as some dude who is absolutely not going to make her feel more comfortable sitting next to her. So that's been, really interesting to kind of process through, like, okay, even though I know, and that's something that I really want men to learn, I know that I have not become any more dangerous to her, but I know that she doesn't have a way of knowing that. And if I sit down and say, don't worry, I'm not dangerous, that's going to make it so much worse. So I just have to acknowledge she cannot perceive me as a safe person. All I can do is keep my distance, be respectful, be aware as a man, if something does come up, I will have a much better, ability to intervene. When my friends and I go out, most of my friends are women. I'm the last person home because I walk everybody else home because I know that I can walk home late at night in St. Louis and they all cannot because they are, single women walking alone. That's not safe for them. And it is for me. So I think about the ways I can convey safety to the people around me. So I definitely have gained a lot of privilege. There are things that I think about that I've lost, like a women's bathroom. That's a magical place. People complimenting each other, gassing up their outfits, helping each other with their makeup. If you go into a men's bathroom and you do a cute little tuck because somebody's tag sticking out, you're getting punched. If you call somebody cute, oh my God, I love your outfit, you're getting punched. If you make eye contact, honestly, on a bad night, you're getting punched. A men's bathroom is not that communal, magical space. It smells and you want to leave. So there are definitely things that I do miss about womanhood. Obviously, it is still worth it for me. I love my identity and my community, but there are definitely things that I have gained, things that I have lost. It has been, not lost on me that it has been a very interesting journey. Sometimes positive, sometimes there are things that are bittersweet.
You did a TED talk.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was really cool. It was really pivotal for me. I gave that in college when I was in school to be an elementary school teacher. I wanted to be a third grade teacher, and I had been doing so much informal education work. And I said, I want to do this TEDx talk to sum up everything I've learned about, and then I can close the chapter on the advocate, section of my life. And instead, the talk got posted to YouTube. And so many people saw it and shared it and came out because of it, or used it to come out to their families. And companies found it and said, hey, do you do this professionally? And so I said, maybe I should. And after a couple of months and a couple more speaking engagements that I said, I think I'm actually pretty good at this. I realized that I had an ability to do a lot of good in my community. And my motto has always been try to maximize your good. So I said, I think I can do a whole lot more good here than I might be able to do just with one classroom. I think I could reach a lot of people. And so that ended up being a pretty life-changing experience, getting to give my TEDx talk, which is called Where Are You Sitting? And it talks a lot about that chair analogy I mentioned. It was really special, and that will always hold a special place in my heart, as now I am a full-time public speaker, all thanks to that one TEDx talk.
And you're married?
Yeah, I got married. I'm a newlywed. I got married about 5 months ago. Having a good time so far.
Growing up, did you always think that you would get married?
Oh gosh. I didn't know that transgender people got married because I didn't know that people like me deserved love or could be loved. And the way that my previous partners had treated me wasn't really indicating to me that I was going to be able to be in a successful long-term relationship. And then I started dating my wife. We started dating in college. I was on stage and she was my stage manager. At first we didn't really get along because I was always distracting people and she was yelling at me. So she thought I was annoying and I thought she was scary. And then I became a little bit less annoying. She became a little bit less scary. And the rest is history.
So how long have you guys known each other then?
We met 6 years ago and we started dating about 5 years ago.
Wow. And you just mentioned 5 months ago, you just got married.
We got married in October.
So why did you want, it sounds like an odd question to ask, but why did you want to get married then?
Yeah, though previous partners hadn't treated me with love and respect, she always has. And she was with me. I had already come out as trans. I was trans in high school. So I was already out, but I hadn't gone through any sort of medical changes or legal changes at that point. And she was so supportive through everything, through my top surgery, through starting hormone therapy, legally changing my name. She has just been with me through every piece of my journey with so much love. And she's really pretty and she's really smart. I just really like her. I knew I had a huge crush on her. I'm still obsessed with my wife. Everyone during the wedding process, by the way, the way people treat men who are getting married to women, the number of people who were like, don't forget to go to the wedding, the old ball and chain, last night of freedom. And I was like, what? Why do people keep insinuating I'm not excited to get married? This is my wife. I'm getting married. This is awesome. So I it felt like a no-brainer. I knew pretty quickly in our relationship, I knew that she was going to be the one for me.
But there are other ways that you could be together. You can, just, stay together, live your lives together without having that certificate, without being, in the eyes of the law, married. So did you want it to be a legal thing then?
Yeah, always great to get married for tax purposes, great to get married because it would make sure that we had any respect and validity we needed in our relationship should there be any kind of a medical emergency. Making sure we had all of those rights was really important to us. And we're people who love a good party. Our families were very excited for us to get married because, they wanted to plan a wedding. So that was really fun. But I think, we wanted to have that, the tax benefits. We wanted to have the, ability to access, again, those medical legal rights. But in general, it was just we loved each other. There wasn't a reason not to get married. We're really excited.
So, Ben, here's my last question for you. What do you hope your audiences take away after reading My Child is Trans, Now What? What do you hope your audience comes away with after reading your book?
Yeah, that is a great question. I hope they leave in general with a feeling of hope, a feeling like they are not alone in going through this. A lot of people, one of the scariest things is feeling like nobody else has done this before. I am blazing my own trail. I am the first person to do this. And you're not. There are so many people who have been through this before. So I hope that people leave with a sense of hope. I hope they leave with a feeling of, I know how to find a community around me. I hope they leave feeling activated as allies, ready to step in and support people, not just as passive allies of like, oh, I call myself an ally and I changed my profile picture on Facebook to have a rainbow in it for June. But, there's a quote I love, which is, if you're trying to be my ally and the stones thrown at me aren't hitting you, you aren't standing close enough. And so people ready to take those hits and to say, I'm going to take a strong stance of allyship for my loved one. So I hope they're leaving with that activation, with energy and enthusiasm. And I hope they're leaving with an understanding that I'm not going to be able to tell them what their, child or partner or loved one needs, but they are. And so they leave with communication strategies where their loved one knows that they can ask for the things they need in support, and they know how to have those conversations together. I hope they leave feeling ready to lift up the person that they love. It's an amazing question. I'm glad you asked it.
Well, Ben V, what does the V stand for?
The V stands for Vance. I mostly added it in because there are so many other Ben Greene authors that when you search me, there's like all these books that are not mine. And so we said, all right, we're going to do Ben V Greene. Vance is my middle name, that I actually chose because Vance Joy, his song Riptide, was a song I would listen to with, for a long time, only a handful of people knew I was trans. And so my best friend and I would listen to that song and sing and dance. And it was a reminder that wherever I was, I knew there was at least one person who saw me as I was. And I chose my middle name to be Vance as a way to pay an homage to that song and to that friend, and a subtle way to remind myself there would always be people who see me as I am.
Well, Ben Vance Greene, well said, well done, well written. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
My Child is Trans, Now What? A joy-centered approach to support will be available wherever you get your favorite books starting May 7th. For even more on author Ben V. Greene and to pre-order his book, simply visit bgtranstalks.com.
If we think of the 1970s as the period where the gay community was trying to get noticed, the 1980s was the time when we actually got noticed and started getting seriously slammed. The cops had never been happy with Trudeau's 1969 decriminalization. If you look at historian Tom Hooper's work, you'll see that arrests of gay men actually increased across the country after decriminalization. Remember, this was way before apps. If you wanted to hook up, baths or bars were the best places to go, so those were the places that police targeted. And there were a series of bath and bar raids in Montreal and Toronto and Edmonton and Ottawa and other cities. The Toronto bath raids of February 5th, 1981 are the most famous. When Toronto's pro-gay mayor John Sewell and the first openly gay candidate for city council, George Hislop, were both defeated in the municipal elections in 1980, the cops figured we were vulnerable and swooped. They smashed into most of the city's gay baths, trashed the places, and arrested almost 300 men on a range of charges. It wasn't just the baths, they were also hassling the bars on concocted liquor license violations, and they were busting individuals in bookstores for porn. Basically, they were trying to shut down the gay village and recriminalize homosexuality. But that night when they hit the baths, they bit off more than they could chew. In Toronto, for the first time, the activists and the small business people and the normally non-political bar and bath patrons all came together in a series of massive demonstrations. We raised money to fight the charges in court and won. We made common cause with Black and South Asian communities who are also experiencing police brutality and harassment, and we demanded community control of the police. We called for changes to the criminal code to get rid of antiquated laws that still criminalize sex. That new community unity also laid the foundation for dealing with the next crisis that was about to affect us all, the AIDS epidemic. This is Tim McCaskill, a gay liberation dinosaur from another planet and author of Queer Progress.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com where everything is connected and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true. So believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, I'm Eric Radford, Olympic and world champion figure skater, pianist, and composer, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.